Hey everybody, so I've been talking about this for a while, doing like a big spoiler-filled review of the movie After, and this is that video. So if you do not want to be spoiled, now is the time to click away. So you know what, I'm going to give you guys a couple more seconds to do that. You can head on over to the channel and you'll find my third viewing movie review, and you'll also find my original movie review, and those are both non-spoilers. But of course, if you want to be spoiled, this is the video for you. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's start with something that I've been seeing online over the past few days, is that people complaining that this should have been a mini-series, that this should have been a show on Netflix, that this should have been on Hulu, that if only it had been on Netflix, if only it had been on Hulu, then they could have gone, you know, the full way with this. And the one thing that I want to make perfectly clear here is that Anna Todd has backed herself into a corner, because she has said multiple times in interviews talking about how much she was involved in this film. So all the things that you guys got going on in your head, thinking that, you know, well, you know, why wasn't she involved? You know, how dare they not involve her in this? You know, this film feels like she wasn't involved. The truth is that she was very much involved, and she has talked a lot about how much she was involved in the making of this film. The truth of the matter is that whether we had a movie or a Netflix movie or TV show or what have you, the bet never would have been in the film. Never would have been in any version of this thing, because you know what? It's 2019, and I doubt with, you know, with the rise of feminism right now, with the Me Too movement, that there's no way that they could have had a scene in this thing where two guys bet each other money on who can take a girl's virginity first. And when the guy who was supposed to be our romantic lead actually ends up winning, he shows his friends her bloody sheets. That never would have made it in, no matter which way you swing it, no matter how they do it. Because Anna Todd has even admitted that, whoopsie, you know, I regret doing the sheets. You know, I cringe when I think of the sheets. I mean, she has admitted that on multiple occasions. Now, of course, let's talk about the ending, because like a lot of people are complaining about the ending, which, yes, I agree that there is a middle ground between what we got in the film and the very controversial, very problematic thing that was in the book. Now, in the movie, it is revealed that right after Tessa, like you can see this in the trailer a little bit, after she says to Hardin during the game of Truth or Dare, "I'm done playing this game," and Molly kind of taunts him a little bit, he turns to the camera and pretty much says, "I dare myself that, okay, I got a dare for you. I'm going to make her fall in love with me, and then I'm going to turn it off like that." Okay, look, okay, I get that you're never going to be able to do the bet, you're never going to be able to do, like, what was in the book, but there really is a middle ground, and I think that they could have thought of something a little bit better than that, because, yes, in a way, they did soften him a lot in this movie, to the point that it never really came off as something that this version of the character would have done. No matter how much he was being, you know, egged on by his friends, or never mind how much he was being taunted by Molly. That I don't think that this version of the character that seemed completely out of character for this version of the character. Another thing that people are complaining about is the fact that they toned down the toxicity of the relationship, or they pretty much wiped away the toxicity of this relationship. And like even like one person on Twitter, you know, pretty much listed like everything that this film is without, and it pretty much said, bet, Zed versus Hardin, Hardin's anger, fight, bad words, Hardin cold and Tessa weak. Okay, so wait, are y'all actually complaining that they took out the toxicity of this relationship and the abusive nature of this relationship and actually gave, let's not even focus on Hardin for a minute, but the Tessa part. Are you actually complaining that they gave her agency in this movie. That they actually made her stronger in this film. That instead of having her run off and crying and, you know, pretty much ending the movie there, they actually continued the film for another 20 or so minutes. I mean, it felt like a little bit long. I know it wasn't 20 minutes, but it felt like, you know, it was actually an extension where we actually see her moving on with her life, where we actually see her not completely fall apart because of a guy. And I actually really enjoyed that part of the movie. I actually enjoyed the fact that they actually fixed what I do think is a problem with the book, is that she is weak in the book. She is basically a doormat in the book, where, again, they fight so much to the point that by the end, I mean, you know that at some point they are going to get back together, and I'm going to start the read-throughs pretty soon of the sequel, but you know that at some point that these two are going to finally come back together, but in the book, this relationship is so toxic, so abusive, that it's never believable that she would ever go back to this once it is revealed where this whole thing started. Whereas in the film, they fix this relationship to such an extent that you can actually see the seeds be implanted on the fact that, yes, you actually can believe that these two can get back to a good place together, that you can actually believe that these two can reconcile. So that when they kind of do give us sort of that ambiguous ending where she's sitting on the dock at the lake and he comes walking up, that you can actually believe that there is a part, because they do leave it very much open-ended. They do leave it open-ended. They do leave it ambiguous to where if you are somebody who wants to see them fight, who doesn't just want to see them, you know, just all of a sudden, you know, be lovey-dovey again and, you know, just like wipe away everything and, you know, make everything okay again, they left themselves enough room with the ambiguousness of the ending to where the second movie could open up with her pretty much turning around and saying, you know, dude, go fuck yourself for this shit. You know, like, how could I ever forget? Like, you could see, like, I mean, it looked like they did give themselves enough room if they do want to kind of, like, open up the sequel with them, you know, just not, you know, immediately getting back together, but maybe fighting this out a little bit, but maybe pretty much her looking at him and saying that what you did was unforgivable. That, you know, like, that to actually see these two kind of butt heads and kind of like, and fight with each other. Another thing that I noticed about the film, is that a lot of scenes in the trailer are not in the film. A couple of the scenes that I noticed were, them getting ready for the wedding. Because again, in the film pretty much, because again, the film is kind of choppy in the way that it's edited, in a way that it almost feels like you can feel that there are, you know, 20 or so minutes that are missing from this film that I'm waiting to see if they give it like a longer cut on DVD Blu-ray or in some format that it pretty much goes from a montage of them being all lovey-dovey and them, you know, pretty much, you know, having like several romantic moments to, with them in the aquarium, to all of a sudden it jumps to them walking up to the wedding with Hardin saying, you know, I can't believe you actually convinced me to come. Like, again, I would have liked to see that sequence. Like, I would have liked to see, because again, it felt like such a jarring jump from the aquarium and like that montage of like all the lovey-dovey moments to all of a sudden them being at the wedding. I mean, again, because I've seen the trailer, so I know that you filmed, a scene of them getting ready for the wedding, because we've seen pictures of it. We've seen, you know, shots in the trailer of him going like, you look stunning. Again, that's not in the movie. Another scene that is not in the movie, and this is where I kept going like, okay, why did you not include this? Was that too violent for the film? Is the scene where Hardin, which is clear where this scene would have gone. This is the scene where he is smashing the guitar against the bookshelf. That you can see him swinging the guitar in the trailer. you can actually see in the film like where that would have gone. It's when they keep cutting back from, you know, her getting on with her life to him sitting in his dorm room or in his fraternity room, you know, listening to music and, you know, looking very depressed, upset, you know, hating himself for, you know, what he did to this girl. And then again, it keeps cutting back to him, that I was just sitting there like, okay, smash the guitar, smash the guitar, smash the where the hell is the guitar smashing? You could have put it in there. I mean, why did you keep cutting back if you were not going to put the smashing of the guitar? Because at some point, it just felt like they just cut back to him sitting in the dorm room or the fraternity room one too many times. Another scene that is missing, and again, I don't know where this would have gone, by the way, just based on the version that we got, or the version that we can see in theaters, is the scene in the trailer where Peter Gallagher, who plays Ken Scott, who is the chancellor of the university, who's also Hardin's father, where he says I'm guessing he's talking to Tessa, it has to do with Hardin. That scene is not in the movie, and I was kind of sitting there going like, by the end of it, I was like, okay, where was this sequence? But I could never tell like where that scene would have gone. Because, and I know it would have gone before the wedding, because she even seems to know his dad's first name, because she does call him by his first name during the wedding scene. I think I did hear her say that during the wedding scene. So yeah, so I know that she had to have met him before that point, because the only time where we ever, you know, really hear about him is when, you know, Hardin doesn't want to talk about him or talk about his family, or when Landon is the one who ends up saying to Tessa, oh, by the way, you know, Chancellor Scott is Hardin Scott's father, when they're kind of talking back and forth after the Pride and Prejudice discussion in the classroom, which, by the way, that was one of my favorite sequences in the movie. I mean, I really did love that back and forth between them. I love that banter back and forth between them. It was actually a pretty funny scene. One of the things that I kind of made references to I think I said it during my third viewing review. I don't know if I actually mentioned it during my first viewing, but the needle drop for the cover of Complicated by Avril Lavigne. I don't know who actually sings it in the film, but I don't think that was Avril Lavigne, unless I'm completely just don't recognize her voice anymore. That needle drop felt a little bit too on the nose, in my opinion. That was the needle drop that I was talking about. That was the song that I was talking about. I was just like, oh, really? Like really, like, now you're gonna drop that song? Like, really? Because it was actually played right after the scene in the restaurant, where I guess that was the catch-up scene from the book. I mean, you know, you guys can kind of, you know, explain to me a little bit more, because I'm not really remembering, like, how much more was there to the catch-up scene, to where people are saying, well, the catch-up scene was not in the movie. But yeah, it's right after the lake scene, where they're in the restaurant, kind of pretty much having like this nice, sweet moment. And then, of course, Zed and Molly have to come in and completely ruin the moment. And, you know, Hardin gets all cold with her, you know, gets all distant with her after being kind of a little bit, he's still a little bit distant with her in that scene, but he is a little bit more open with her. He is a little bit more joking around with her. A little bit more smiling and, you know, a little bit more playful with her. But then all of a sudden, Zed and Molly come in, and, you know, everything gets wiped away. And, you know, he starts being cold. You know, he tosses Tessa his keys and says, you know, go wait, you know, go wait for me at the bar. Or she says, yeah, I'm going to go wait at the bar. And then he comes up and, you know, she starts accusing him of, you know, what, are you embarrassed to be seen with me? And he's like, no, of course not. And, you know, and so that big argument happens. And then, of course, he kind of breaks her heart a little bit when he says, I don't date, which, by the way, like, he's pretty much has said this from day one. Like, he's pretty much has made this clear from day one. I mean, you've heard his Pride and Prejudice discussion with you. I mean, you've heard how he feels about this, so it shouldn't be that much of a shock when he pretty much, turns cold in that moment and says, well, I don't, what, we were just having fun. I mean, if you want to break up with your high school, boyfriend, don't put that on me. Don't blame that, don't use me as an excuse. We were just having fun. So again, like, that scene should not come off as, or that bit of dialogue should not come off as that much of a surprise to her as much as it does. So then we cut to her back in her dorm room, wiping off the makeup, wiping off her face, and over the soundtrack we hear the cover to Complicated by Avril Lavigne. And again, I was just like, that's a little bit, especially for this moment, that is a little bit too on the nose, but I don't expect anything different. Another thing that really kind of, and I think like one person, kind of said it, that, like with these first films, like with 50 Shades, with Twilight, the supporting cast is always going to get the shaft, basically, that the supporting cast are basically non-characters. But if you're going to make a big deal, or pretty much like make it a point to gender bend the character of Tristan and make and actually have this LGBTQ relationship between Tristan and Steph, then you better do something with it. Rather than just looking like it's just in there just to, as some people use the term queer baiting. I've seen some people use the term for this, and that's exactly what it came off as. And I get the fact that, again, with these first films, like, the supporting cast always gets the short end of the stick. They don't get that much to do. But again, like, sometimes it just feels like there's like 15 to 20 minutes missing from this film. Because, again, we see parts in the trailer that are not in the film. So I know that Peter Gallagher shot more sequences, because it was also, like, surprising to get, just, like, sitting there watching the movie, just, like, really, you get Peter Gallagher, you get Jennifer Beals, and you don't give them more to do? You don't give them anywhere beyond one scene? Selma Blair actually got 3 scenes in the movie, which is actually very, that was actually nice, because I actually did like the little adding extension of the ending where Tessa went back home and, talked to her mom and, kind of patched things up with Noah and her mother. I did like those extensions, because, again, it gives her more agency. It doesn't just revolve her entire life around the boy, around Hardin. We actually can see her moving on with her life. We can actually see her, going into the publishing house and, kind of like changing her major into something that she cares more about, something that she actually wants to do. We can actually see her taking charge of her life. What's like another scene that I wanted to talk about? I talked about the fact that this thing does jump around a lot. It does, it feels like very little connective tissue with the sequences. I know I talked about the ending. I wish they would have given us like maybe like a couple more scenes, or I wish that Dylan Arnold. And I know, like, this is kind of, because, again, like, certain scenes from the book are cut out. So, like, after she comes back from a party, I remember this in the book, after she comes back from a party, her mother and Noah are there waiting for her, and they go out and, again, just like another scene that I would have, just give Selma Blair a little bit more to do, give like these supporting casts a little bit more to do. But again, I get it. It's the first film, you're not going to be able to, fit everything. You're not going to be able, pretty much like this is what first films do. one of the things that killed me, and what I realized is that Meadow Williams, and I actually want to get this right because this is exactly how this came off to me. I want to see, like, who are the producers on this? Because I know that Swen Temmel, who plays Jace, is one of the producers. And there's my answer. Meadow Williams is also who plays Professor Soto in the movie. She's also another one of the producers. So when they, okay, so right there at the end, when Hardin, if you read the book, so Hardin goes off after she read the text. They pretty much like go around to like all of his friends and tell, or this is what happens in the book. So he goes out from their apartment and, you know, like runs to tell all of their friends, you know, hey, you know, don't tell her, you know, about, you know, trying to fix this shit, you know, trying to make sure that nobody tells Tessa what the hell has been happening. So right before that happens, this is what happens in the film. So she reads his texts from Molly. And the texts pretty much read, you know, like, when are you going to tell her? You know, there's like this kind of this argument between the two of them, between Tessa and Hardin. And one of the last texts says, meet us at Bob's at 9 p.m. And then, of course, Hardin and Tessa kind of get into it. Which, by the way, I was just sitting there like, Tessa, you really do not get the upper hand here because you read his text messages. You don't get the upper hand in this conversation. Like, you don't get to be angry here. You invaded his privacy. So I was like, I was a little bit on Hardin's side, a little bit. But anyway, it's that final text that says, meet us at Bob's, which is Blind Bob's. And so we see Tessa sitting there. We don't see where Hardin is. They keep the camera on Tessa. They keep this entire scene on Tessa, you know, where she's worrying, you know, wondering where he is. She's texting him incessantly, you know, saying, where are you? Where are you? I'm getting worried. And so finally, Jace, played by Swen Temmel, texts her and says, meet me at the Videorama. I'll tell you where Hardin is. So, you know, it's pouring down rain because, of course, it is. So it's pouring down rain. She gets to the Videorama. She gets in the car. You know, her first words out of her mouth are, why are you in Hardin's car? And he's like, what? Can a guy, you know, borrow another guy's, like, can a guy borrow his friend's car? Which, yeah, he's got a point there. But then she starts, like, asking him repeatedly, like, where's Jace? Or no, not where's Jace, where's Hardin? And so he says, oh yeah, I think he's over at Blind Bob's. And I was just sitting there like, honey, you read his text messages. Do you not remember? I mean, why not just wait? I mean, if you're so worried about him, why not just wait until 9 p.m. and then go over to Blind Bob's? Why did we need a scene with Jace in the car? Other than the fact that it just screamed that, well, Swen Temmel is a producer, so we want to put him in the movie as much as possible. So yeah, but like, why do we need that moment? That could have been a moment that that could have spent more time developed. I mean, actually, you know, putting like maybe like another scene from the book, like I mean, where you could have like, you know, expanded this thing a little bit, where you could have, you know, said that could have been time that you put, you know, with the guitar smashing sequence, because again, a lot of this film felt like that there was a mandate that came down from on high that flat out said, this movie needs to be an hour and 46 minutes. We don't care what you have to do. We don't care like how much you have to squeeze in, but this movie needs to be an hour and 46 minutes. It cannot be, you know, 2 hours long. It needs to be this short. And so anyway, she goes over to Blind Bob's. She goes over to the restaurant. And again, like when he just says that, so she gets out of his car and goes running, and I'm just sitting there like, where the hell is Blind Bob's? Because shortly after, so when she gets into the restaurant, sitting there is Molly, Zed, and Steph. Tristan is not there, which kind of angered me a little bit, but because Tristan is the one when Molly, because in the book, and I hate to keep saying in the book, but in the book, because they also took out the love triangle between Tessa, Hardin, and Zed. So in the book, Zed is not there when all this revelations are going to happen, but Tristan is. And out of everybody in the group, even though Steph is Tessa's roommate, Tristan is the one who pretty much screams at Molly, to stop this shit. She's fucking had enough. Like that's what I remember from the book, because again, I blew out my voice on multiple, I've blown out my voice twice reading the scene. So yeah, but Tristan was not there, but Zed was, because Zed doesn't come in until after everything has happened, and he drives off with Tessa. But in the movie, Molly's there, Zed's there, and Steph is there. So it basically comes in and she tells them, Tessa comes in and says, oh, by the way, we're living together. We got an apartment, and she says a couple more things. But anyway, Jace comes in with Hardin, pretty much like with his arm around Hardin and saying, yeah, look who I found. And so Hardin comes over, sits down, and is like looking at Tessa, and she starts questioning, like, where were you? And so Hardin looks at her, and is pretty much trying to get her the hell out of there. Trying to, and so she starts accusing him of being with Molly. Oh, you're here with her, and he's just like, no, why would you think that? And I'm just sitting there like, okay, dude, because 90% of the times that she's seen you two together, she has seen Molly pretty much with her fingers in your hair, her fingers on your body. Yeah, if I was Tessa, I'd be a little bit concerned about you two as well. So Molly and again, a problem that I also had with this sequence is that even though the acting is amazing from Hero Finds Tiffin and Josephine Langford, it does feel like the passion has been taken out of this sequence, because Molly even seems like even her nastiness has been dialed back a little bit in this sequence. So yeah, she shows Tessa the cell phone camera, and and it's the extension of the Truth or Dare scene, and Hardin pretty much turns to the camera you don't think I can do it, do you? Like, I got a dare. I'm going to make her fall in love with me. And then just turn it off. Like that. And again, I said this more at the beginning of the video, but I'm talking about it a little bit more. Is that, yeah, there really is like a middle ground between the problematic nature of the book and whatever the hell this was. Because even like by people who kind of defend the film and go like, well, because of course I'm one of those people who will defend the change and say, yeah, they were gonna have to make that change. They were gonna have to change that. There's no way that they could have gotten away with what happened in the book in film, especially today in 2019. So anyway, that whole thing happens. And, they kind of go outside, and again, even like a little bit of this, because it is so rough in the book. It does feel like, again, like these actors are giving it their all, but again, the script gives them nothing to work with in this scene, even though you can feel the actors giving it their all. So instead of Tessa running off or, getting in Zed's car, and Hardin, pretty much like dropping to his knees, out of it, she then goes home, and like I said, she goes home, she fixes everything with her mom and her boyfriend, or her mom and Noah, and then we see her moving on with her life. We see her going to Vance Publishing, getting a job there, effectively saying that she changed her majors to something that she actually cares about. So then we get to another scene that pretty much screamed, I'm here, or this scene is in here because Meadow Williams is the producer. So we get another scene in the classroom where the teacher, like, after saying, hey, everybody, good job, the class starts dismissing, she says, Miss Young, can you stay back for a little bit? And she hands Tessa this manila envelope, this big folder, and says, this is what Mr. Scott turned in for his assignment. I don't think that this was meant for me. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, really? Like, how was the next words out of her mouth not, okay, and by the way, tell Mr. Scott that he failed. Because she even said, like, oh, this is more meant for you than me. And I was like, what? Oh, for crying out loud. But anyway, that scene felt like it was just in there, just to get her that manila envelope. And because Meadow Williams is one of the producers on this movie. So anyway, Tessa reads it, and it's basically like this long letter talking about how he's read, countless romance novels. He never believed in love until he met his own Elizabeth Bennet, who is the heroine from Pride and Prejudice, who is one of the main characters, who is actually the main female character from Pride and Prejudice, that the film name drops quite a bit, tries to make the comparison. She, reads the note, she seems very affected by it. She goes to the dock, she's sitting there. He comes up behind her. We don't actually see any dialogue between them, any discussion between them about anything. And then all of a sudden, the screen goes to black after credits. Another thing that I wanted to mention before I left, before I finished off this video, is that one of the things that kind of bugged me about this is that the film opens up with narration from Josephine Langford, from Tessa. And then all of a sudden, like, after that opening narration, it drops. So when I first saw the film and I heard that opening narration, I kind of threw my arms up in the air and was like, yes! They're gonna do the narration. They're gonna do what I wanted. Yeah! Oh, fuck. You only were gonna do it in the first 2 minutes, aren't you? Because after that, it drops. Like, they never bring back the narration as far as I remember. But through all of this, and I know that I'm kind of talking about this a little bit, and I know I'm kind of talking down about this thing a little bit, but through all of this, I will still say that I love the movie, and I can't exactly explain why. This is like one of those rare films that, not because it was a bad movie, because sometimes, like, I just love bad movies. I mean, I love bad movies, or I love movies because they're terrible, but like with this, it's like, it's not a terrible movie. You still have amazing performances from Josephine Langford and Hero Finds Tiffin. You still have some pretty sweet, you have amazing chemistry between these two that I'm not ready to give up on a sequel. I want to see a sequel. I want to see where they take this. I want to see these two continue to play these roles. And I know that a lot of you are upset about this. I know I am seeing, and I'm trying to figure out, is this really the fans at large? Or is this just like a few, minority, hardcore fans that don't really represent the fandom at large? And that really is one of the things that I'm kind of scratching my head over, kind of wondering, like, okay, like, what is this? Like, is this, representative of the fandom as a whole? Or is this just like a tiny minority who seems to have the megaphone? Would I have liked to see more scenes from the book? Yeah. Would I have liked to see it be closer to the book? Yeah, but I also understand that this is an adaptation. This is not a literal translation. And again, just to repeat for the people who maybe did not hear me, Anna Todd was involved in this from beginning to end. That this is not a situation where she was not involved at all, because that's like what some people are trying to say, is that, oh, the film feels like she wasn't involved. No, she was involved from beginning to end. I mean, she's pretty much backed herself into a corner talking about how much she was involved in this. So whether we got a Netflix, whether this would have been on Netflix, on Hulu, a TV show, there still would have been changes because she approved this every step of the way. So I'm sorry this video ran long. I mean, if you are still here, then thank you. But like I said, I was going to do this big spoiler review for this. I was going to do like this big spoiler talk for this. So yeah, jump down to the comment section. This is the place to spoil. This is the place to really talk about this. So jump down to the comment section, you know, sound off on what you think about or what you really think about the film. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you so much for continuing to subscribe. I'll see you later. After Naders. Take care, y'all.